welcome to the Study in the USA information session brought to you by EducationUSA Australia and EducationUSA New Zealand. My name is Katie Sleeman and I'm an EducationUSA advisor in Auckland. Joining us as well are my colleagues Samantha Jackson in Melbourne and Ron Mitchell in Wellington. We represent EducationUSA, which is part of the US State Department and serves as the official source of US higher education information. We're based in embassies and consulates all around the world, including right here in New Zealand and Australia. You can see that EducationUSA provides a number of services throughout the year, including information sessions and virtual workshops. We do monthly group advising sessions with live Q&A opportunities. We've started a YouTube channel that has over 20 hours of video content for you to access at any point. We also organize engagement opportunities for you to connect directly with US higher education liaisons and other organizations like the Common App or NCAA. We also do a number of counselor development opportunities at schools all around the countries in New Zealand and Australia. So if you are attending a school that doesn't know about EducationUSA yet, please feel free to encourage your teachers or counselors to get in touch with us for more information. This is a general overview session, and today we're going to cover the range of US higher education opportunities, how to research your options, completing your application and financing your studies, as well as college sports and plenty of time for Q&A at the end. We'll start with a bit of housekeeping. You'll notice that there's a chat box and a Q&A box that can be used at any time to ask questions. We'll monitor throughout the presentation and also save some time at the end. This session is being recorded and we'll pop it up on our YouTube channel shortly, so you can access it again if it's helpful. So why would you think about studying in the US if you already know that there are fantastic higher education options right here in Australia and New Zealand? The answer is really a bit different for everyone, but it usually comes down to the flexibility of the degree structure, an option to tailor your experience both inside and outside of the classroom, the opportunity to grow your global network from day one on campus, and to participate in things like research and internships. You can see here that thousands of Australians and New Zealanders choose to go abroad for their university education every year. And when they go, the US is overwhelmingly the #1 choice. That's above staying in the region by hopping across to Australia or New Zealand, or heading over to the UK, Germany, or Canada. And if and when you choose to study in the US, no matter where you are, you'll be able to find a connection from home, that is, if you want one. Kiwis and Australians study in each of the 50 states and at more than 900 different higher education institutions. That certainly is a lot to fathom, but there's actually more than 4,000 different higher education institutions across the US. So we'll take a closer look at the range of opportunities there. So generally speaking, the undergraduate degree or bachelor's degree in the US is a 4-year experience. Of course, there are ways that you can speed that up or fast track that, and there's definitely ways that you can slow that down, but the general plan is for 4 years of study. The first 1 to 2 years are typically for exploring academically or general education requirements. And in that time, you'll take a wide variety of courses. Then you'll likely focus on your major area of study for the last 2 years of your degree. You'll notice that the academic calendar is different in the US. So there, institutions start in August or September and finish the year in May or June. So it's important for you to be thinking about this early on and how it impacts your personal timeline. So for many of you, that could mean that you have a forced gap year of sorts. We'll talk about the research process in more detail, but a good point to know is that there's actually no official ranking system for American universities. Not all institutions participate in surveys like this, and some that would surprise you in that manner. And oftentimes there's a large postgraduate research component that skews the results, and that might not be relevant for you. So that's just good to keep in mind as well. Another thing to know is that many universities in the US practice what we call holistic admissions. And that means that they want to get to know the whole you as part of the application process. There are many factors beyond test scores and classroom results that they'll take into consideration when they're looking at your application. So we'll explore some of those things. Structure of degree programs is slightly different in the US than what you'll find in Australia and New Zealand. There's a 2-year associate's degree that can be obtained from community colleges or junior colleges in the US. I wanted to flag this as it's becoming a really popular option both for US students and students from Australia and New Zealand as well. Community colleges are usually right next to larger university campuses. Generally have smaller class sizes, more affordable tuition fees, and really cool transfer pathways that would allow you to complete the last 2 years of an undergraduate program at a 4-year college or university. So that's called a 2+2 program. So 2 years at community college and then 2 years at a larger 4-year institution. We'll focus mostly on undergraduate programs today, but postgrad programs may already be on your radar. There can be some significant funding if research is part of your plan in postgraduate studies. And one thing I will note that we get a lot of questions about is that if you are looking at studying law or medicine in the US, those are considered professional degree programs. And so that means that you'll need to complete a 4-year undergraduate degree in order to be eligible for most of those programs. I also wanted to flag that if you decide a full degree program isn't really what you're looking for at this stage, there are fantastic semester abroad exchanges available from universities in Australia and New Zealand. So you can still get a taste of that student life in the USA if that's on your radar. It's a lot of information, but we try to simplify the journey with 5 steps to study. Tonight, we're focusing on the first 3, which are researching your options and financing your studies, which really go hand in hand, as well as all the application components. So the key to US admissions is all about finding the right fit. And fit is about whether you're the right student for that university and if that university is right for you. So it really does work both ways. So part of the application process is going to be answering, why is this university a good fit for me? And sometimes we hear stories of students saying, because I have good grades, I should automatically get in, or I've heard of that university, and so that's a tick for me, but it's not that easy. So you really have to demonstrate that fit as part of the admissions process. So we challenge you to really dig deep and think about what's important to you and understand what that university is looking for. Many universities develop their own personalities, and a fun part of the process is getting to know what those personalities are. It's kind of like dating in a way, so it does take time, and what's good for you may be totally different than what's good for your friends. So what is good for you, right? This is when time can really be a blessing, right? So take the time to think about how you like to learn and how you like to socialize, because those 2 things will set you up for success. Think about location, like access to airports, what the weather is like in the university town. Do they have 4 seasons? Does it snow there? Have you ever experienced snow before? So some of those things can be really exciting or cause you a bit of anxiety. So that's all important in your research process. Think about classroom size. So do you like to be one of many in a classroom, or do you prefer a more intimate learning experience? You can really have either of those options or even a mix of them. So it's really important to think about how you engage with your professors and your peers. Think as well about what you want to do in your free time. Do you want to be in clubs, sports? Do you want to join a fraternity or a sorority? Start to picture what this next phase of your academic experience could look like for you. The bottom line is that you want to find a place where you can be both happy and successful. So it's important to use a variety of tools as you research your options. And we've listed here some of our favorites, but it's never too early to start researching and understanding your university options. So here's an example of Big Future, which is College Board's search tool. You can see here that you can search by location, major, activities, housing, or even a combination of all of them. You might have more than 100 different institutions on your list when you're first starting out, but really you want to whittle it down to 4 to 6 institutions when it comes time to apply. We also encourage you to go even beyond this. So check out the university social media pages, check out student blogs, campus radio stations, and even campus newspapers online. Again, each of these universities have a really distinct personality. So figure what they're all about and if it's going to be a good match for you. You can also ask the admissions office to put you in touch with a current student, which is a really good way to get direct information on what to expect, what it's really like. So you're going to love spreadsheets, I have to tell you this, but it's a really good way to stay organized throughout the research process so that you're fully prepared when it comes time to apply. So this is an example of 4 to 6 universities that a student could potentially apply for. So you can see here that they've listed location, listed size. Other good things to put on there are how about any financial aid or scholarship information, any deadlines for applications, any additional documents you might need, or if standardized testing like SAT or the ACT are required. As part of the research process, you'll also want to evaluate your own academic profile. So there's 2 good ways to do this. One is by estimating your grade point average on a 4.0 scale, and 2 is with standardized testing. US universities are familiar with curriculum options in Australia and New Zealand, so you don't even have to worry about that. And knowing your GPA or your grade point average can really help you assess where you sit on the academic spectrum. You can actually search for universities based off of your GPA. There are free tools online that you can use to estimate your own grade point average, but keep in mind that it really is just an estimation, right? Universities often have their own grade point average calculators, and so results can differ slightly. Standardized testing, or the SAT and ACT, can also be used as part of the search process. But I wanted to note that many universities are changing their testing requirements due to access issues around the world because of the pandemic. So this is a good thing, I think. They've come to realize that there are many other parts of the application that speak to a student's ability, so it's not just about test results. Our advice is that you make sure to sign up for email updates from the universities on your list and check out their current testing policies. Those are pretty easy to find, but you definitely want to check each institution on your list. Also, you might want to consider that sometimes just by taking an SAT or an ACT test, you're automatically put in the running for a university scholarship. So if that's the case with that particular university, you want to check up on those policies as well, just so you have the best information. So when it comes to apply, there are several different platforms that can be used. The Common App is widely used, and it's popular because you can just use the one application to apply to many different institutions. You may also come across instances like with the University of California, which has its own application platform. Also note that there are many different deadlines to consider before you even apply. So the regular decision deadlines are typically in early December, sometimes before then. There are definitely ways that you can also apply that you can find out by the end of December if you've already been accepted. So that's the early action and early decision that you see on this slide here. So the timing, of course, can be beneficial for students in our region, but there can also be restrictions with these. So make sure that you're reading the fine print to know if it's a binding decision or if there's restrictions on applying to other universities at the same time you're applying early. You can see here all of the different components of the university application on this page. So starting with school results, school transcripts, we call them. So American universities are really looking to see your results over the last 4 years of study, just to know that you've been maintaining pretty steady or improving your grades over time. They're also really curious to see what you've decided to take in terms of subjects and coursework. So what are you interested in? In many cases, universities really want to see English and maths all the way through high school if possible. Also a variety of sciences and social sciences in there as well. We talked about SAT and ACT and how they can be a part of the university application. But I also wanted to flag that you actually get a time to share your own voice as part of the application process. So there will be opportunities for you to write essays or personal statements as well. So the good news is that information is available early. So even months before that application is due, you can check for writing prompts and get those essays well out of the way before it becomes crunch time in terms of applications. You'll also need to have references or letters of recommendation from your school as part of the application process. The general rule of thumb is that you'll need 3 of those letters. 2 of them should be from teachers that you've had, and 1 of them can also come from a counselor or someone else that's designated within your school. So be sure to approach these people early on so that they have time to draft really great letters for you. We talked about holistic admissions before, and I think this community work and extracurriculars are a really important part of that holistic process. Because again, universities want to know the whole you, what you're passionate about, what you do in your free time, because they want you to carry through with those things as you transition to that university campus as well. So I also wanted to flag that at the same time you're putting all of these pieces together as part of the university application, you'll also need to complete a form for financial assistance or scholarships. So be on the look for those things. So now is a fantastic time to be doing virtual research. And by that, I mean that universities are more available than ever before to answer your questions. Many of them are hosting online information sessions that some of which are even time zone friendly. You can also take virtual campus tours online. So there's just so much great content out there. It's a really great time to be researching all of the different options. Also exploring different options too. So are the universities actually having in-person classes right now? Are there opportunities that you can maybe defer enrollment? It's a good time to be finding out all of those things, especially if this is your last year of high school right now. So now I'm going to pass it over to Samantha to take a quick look at financing your studies.
Thanks, Katie. Nice to be with you all tonight. Next slide, please. In regards to going to US colleges, it's always good to come up with a bit of a plan and also to sit down with family members and really identify what funds you can also contribute to the US experience. So part of that as a family is you need to evaluate the cost of experience. If you're joining us from Australia and even New Zealand, it's often not free to go to your own university programs. So it's really good to evaluate what that cost of experience is and identify a strategy. Most families in America are contributing some part to their college cost. And that's always a good thing to have at the back of your mind in regards to identifying that that's something that you possibly need to contribute to as well. That being said, there are types of aid that's often known as merit. And that will obviously depend on your very strong high school grades. That's evaluated, as Katie said, from years 9 through to years 12. And for some US colleges, they'll have needs-based financial aid. So what they'll be asking your family to do is to complete some financial documentations that are reviewed, and then the college will come up with a formula of what they can contribute to helping you get to that particular US college. Again, we want to be the messages of realistic expectations. So it really is important that you need to look at knowing that you need to contribute something. Again, be aware of those admission deadlines because often they can be different than the financial and merit scholarship deadlines. So again, that spreadsheet that we spoke about, add that to the spreadsheet so you can keep track of everything. Next slide, please. So as we said, there are quite a few types of financial aid, and we want to share some of those with you tonight so you understand what those differences are. There are scholarships available, and that's for merit-based and your academic grading, but also for talent. So if you're a budding student athlete out there, you could get a sports scholarship. If you are a musician or a performing arts student, again, you could get a talent scholarship in that regard as well. There are grants that can be available from some US colleges, and that normally means you don't have to pay back that money. Again, there are loans, and you will need to pay back that money. There are financial institutions in America and also respective countries, Australia and New Zealand, that you can also go to see if they offer some kind of student loans as well. There are opportunities for internship and cooperative programs later through your program. There are tuition and fee waivers. For some students, you may have a sister school relationship with some colleges where you can pay in-state tuition. So it's really important to put that on your list of research to see what's available. And there are also opportunities to work on campus. As international students, you can work for 20 hours a week as part of that contribution. So it won't pay for your college, but it could definitely help you live while you're on campus. Next slide, please. And obviously the plan is to reduce your educational costs. So it's really important that you research quite a few options. And obviously look at the public options for institutions and also the private colleges. Private colleges will be quite expensive. And if you want to contribute to that and you're willing to pay that, then that's okay. But there are a lot of state schools where the tuition will be lower. So again, I would research and do a combination of both. Because when you are looking at options in your respective countries, you'll be looking at a full gamut of options in regards to where that is as well. And again, another option is you could attend community colleges first for your first 2 years and then go on to a 4-year college for your final 2 years. So there are definitely different strategies on how you can pay for your US college pathways. And again, Education USA provides programming and information on all of those, so continue to engage with us as well. And again, it depends where you live. The cost of living in Midwest America is probably different than living in New York. But if New York is your passion, then New York still could be a very good fit for you. Thanks, Katie. Next slide, please. Now, we were talking about timelines before and how important this is in creating a strategy. So it's never too early to start researching US college options. So depending on what year you're in tonight will depend probably where you should be in the spectrum of planning. So if you are with us and you're in your final year of high school, then we would like to think that you have your list of colleges almost complete of where you think you would like to apply right now. If that hasn't happened, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that during the September school holidays, you really should be using that to identify exactly where you want to apply to, and start preparing much of those applications. If you are using something like the Common App, that prompt has been released since January this year, and you can be drafting those up now. So again, that's why it's really important to work out where you are in the time frame. If you are in your second last year of high school, obviously it's never too early to start researching, but what you should be focusing on is keeping up your grades, because your academic grades are really going to be an important part of getting you into possible US colleges. But stay involved with what you're doing, research institutions, keep on building your list. Your list is going to change over time, and that's okay. The more you research, the better that list will come. And again, even though it is becoming test optional because of COVID this year, there could be a really good strategy with considering doing an SAT or an ACT. And again, if you are in year 10 and under, continue just to make a plan, research, engage with Education USA, come to ongoing sessions that interest you, and the more information you receive, the easier that will be in identifying programs, options, and ways forward. And again, it really is a process, and it's okay to do it in time chunks. And one of the best suggestions that I can recommend is that if you are interested in a US college, I would set up an email that is just specifically used for your US college recruitment, so that if you sign up to newsletters, then they can be sending you emails to this account, and it will not interfere with your messaging when you go through your high school and those requirements. So again, the timeline can also be a lot of fun. The research can be fun. So do enjoy the time that you put into it as well. Next slide, thanks. Again, there have been some changes with COVID. There have been some pivots because of COVID as well. The US admissions departments have certainly pivoted. There is a lot more flexibility in the application process. As we've already mentioned, testing may not be part of the admission requirement anymore, but it still may well help you in regards to those scholarships. So it's really important to stay up to date with what US colleges are sending out on their websites, and using that as a point of comparison. And now there's a bit of a terminology coming up called hybrid. And that is meaning that there is some online class availability as well as on-campus availability as well. So that's what hybrid means, and that is something that is really evolved through to COVID times as well. But stay up to date with COVID. I think from the Southern Hemisphere, we know that how that's affected our regions. So just be proactive in those messages that are coming out from US colleges. Next slide, please. Now we're going to go through some college sport information. If we were in a room, I would ask you to guess my sport. I was a golfer in the US. NIU was my institution, Northern Illinois University. So we're going to come through some college sport information now. So please stay with us if you're still interested in academics, and we'll be getting through to the question and answer segment shortly. Next slide, please, Katie. Now, the sporting opportunities are really prominent in the US, and I think a lot of people joining us tonight are well aware of those. It becomes really important that you're aware of where those opportunities can take you. There are 3 associations that we want to share with you tonight. The NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, is sometimes what everyone has heard about because of basketball and March Madness, but it is the most competitive, and Division I is the most elite. Division II, still very competitive, and then Division III. Division III, you can't get an athletic scholarship, but you can get a merit scholarship. And interestingly, when you look at the numbers, more people go to Division III and get some form of scholarship money than they do at Division 1 or Division 2. So again, looking at those options is very good. The other associations that are maybe a little bit less known, but are still great in providing opportunities to students, is the NGCAA. That's the National Junior College Athletic Association. They're 2-year institutions. So if you are in Australia and can go to a TAFE institution, that's often what it relates to in regards to your degrees that you'll get from those institutions. But you can do your first 2 years at a junior college and then be recruited and do your final 2 years at an NCAA school. Or the other option is an NAIA school. Again, they're 4-year institutions. They tend to be smaller institutions, again, but there are scholarships available through those regions as well. So again, if you are very good at a sport that these institutions have, then maybe it is a great idea for you to continue looking at being recruited in those areas. Next slide, please. So when identifying athletic programs, we want to share some messaging with you tonight. Coaches need you to graduate from their programs. Coaches know that they can inevitably make you better athletes. So they're really going to be impressed by your academics as well. So if you were to meet us in any of our programs around our countries and you said, but Samantha, I'm nationally selected in my sport, they are going to recruit me even if I get D's in all my classes. The answers to that is no, they won't. They'll have to recruit you knowing that you're academically going to be successful at their programs as well. So if you are with us tonight, we really encourage you to knuckle down with your grades as best as possible so that you can be a really good candidate. Now, if you're joining us tonight and you're in year 10 and you've gone, oh, but my grades weren't very good in year 9, then what's really important is that you continue to show upward progression as you continue through high school. And that will be a really important part of being recruited. And you've got to make sure that you match your US colleges that will match the academic rigor that they offer as well. So we go into that programming through what we offer through Education USA. And a good place to start is our YouTube channel after tonight as well on what US colleges are looking for. Next slide, please. Again, athletic scholarships, everybody wants one, not everyone can get one. But again, it's well worth knowing what those options are. It is very rare in some instances to get a full scholarship for some sports. It is possible, but that full scholarship would cover tuition fees, would cover room and board, and would cover books. However, if you are joining an athletic team, and let's use an example of maybe the swimming and diving team, there may be 25 people on the squad, but only 10 scholarships. So a coach is going to cut them up and turn them into partial scholarships so that everyone can get a little bit of something. So again, look at what the coaches in the teams are doing in regards to how they give out their scholarships. And that's also something that can be easily researched as well. Generally speaking, scholarships are only given annually and they need to be renewed every year. So that's why it's also important to be committed to your approach because there are cases when scholarships will not be renewed. And there are quite a few ways that you can go about getting a scholarship. You could get headhunted, and what that means is you may be playing on a national team that plays internationally when we can travel. And a coach can see you that way, and they may approach you and say, we want to recruit you. You can go through an agent or an organization. Again, if you choose that pathway, you need to evaluate the cost to spend and how effective they are in placing students before you. And again, you can go on your own as well. There are resources that we share in how you can do that, but the process is possible and can definitely be a way forward. Next slide, please. There are also times when coaches can and can't communicate with you. And that's why a recommendation letter from a coach becomes really important when you develop your sports resume, because a coach can communicate with a coach, and they can obviously be a good advocate of why you should be recruited. So if you haven't thought about contacting your coaches, informing your sports resume, we encourage you to do that. It is an excellent element that can definitely help you be recruited. Next slide, please. If you are joining us tonight and you are aspiring to be recruited at an NCAA program, we are going to encourage you to sign up with the NCAA Eligibility Centre this weekend. And you should all set up a profile page. That is a free service that the NCAA allows. They will then know what year you are in, and they will give you messaging throughout the year in regards to what you should be doing as a student athlete on that pathway. So that come your final year of finishing high school, they will definitely share information with you in regards to what you should be doing. If you are actively being recruited by a coach, what inevitably will happen is you'll be recommended to turn your profile account into a certification account. Basically, the only difference in making that happen is you often take mum and dad's credit card, and that will be $150, which then enables your file to be reviewed. And if you were ever invited to a recruiting trip that the sporting team would pay for, you would need a certification account as well. So we do encourage you, wherever you are in the system, to set up a profile page with the NCAA, work with your schools and getting your transcripts to them at the completion of every year. If any of that doesn't make sense, then do engage with us at the end of this presentation, and we can certainly share those steps with you. Next slide, please. We don't want to spend too much time on this tonight, but if you are joining us tonight and wanting to go to an NCAA program, you may have heard of the need to do 16 core subjects. This is the summary of what those 16 core subjects are. If you are joining us early in your high school career, you should try and do 4 core subjects every year of your last 4 years, and that will enable you to get to the 16 core easily. English is compulsory, I believe, for most people in the last 4 years of high school, so that's easy to tick off. Once you see this nice template here, and we'll show you the next slide, it really is an easy process, and we will definitely help talk you through that if some of that does not seem easy to understand. We're going to share some resources to help you start the process as well. This is a bit of a favorite from Katie and I. It's called scholarshipstats.com. You could pull up your respective sport. It has data updated from the 2020, and it shows you what scholarships are given at US colleges, what scholarships are given for respective sports. It really is a wonderful resource, and we encourage you to check it out over the school holidays. Next slide, please. Again, we are quite proud of our YouTube channel. We know that the process to US colleges seems complicated when it is a process that you're not used to. We have certainly simplified that process on our YouTube channel. This session recording will also be uploaded there at a later date for you also to refer to. But as Katie mentioned, there are about 25 videos there to make your process a whole lot easier. If you are interested in college sports, we also have a playlist there for you titled US College Sports 2021. And again, we've helped you simplify the process. So check some of those recordings out. I'm sure it will answer your questions, and then be sure to reach out to your respective EducationUSA office, where we'd be happy to help you further. Next slide, please. I did go back with that QR code. The QR code will take you to our YouTube channel. So if you've even got your smartphone out tonight, you could obviously save that tonight on your phones. There are also some great resources available for you. This is the resource that's updated every year from the NCAA. We encourage you to bookmark it, put it under your pillow, make sure it is a document that you readily look at, because it really does simplify the process. On page 21, they have a great worksheet that also helps you identify the 16 core courses. And we would always encourage you to have a go at filling that in first before you came to our respective offices, where we could help you identify your core courses. So that's just one example of the kind of information that's in there. There's a whole lot of information about when you can communicate with coaches, depending on your respective sports, and the timeline of how you should be graduating and finishing your high school within your last 4 years. Thanks, Katie. Next slide. Again, it also depends on how you like researching and how you like looking at things. The NCAA member school map on the left-hand side of the screen will be able to show you where all the NCAA institutions are. I think when you look at this page, I think it's really interesting, because if you look at the middle of the page and go to the left, you'll see that it's not populated by many dots, and that means that there's not many US colleges there. Most of the US colleges in the US are from the Midwest to the East Coast, and I think sometimes looking at tools like this that can illustrate what the US looks like is very helpful. So if you like that kind of learning and looking at maps and understanding the lay of the land, then that tool on the left could be very helpful. The tool on the right is a really good search tool in regards to identifying where the programs are for your respective sports. And also you could actually drill down for Division 1, 2, and 3. So there are great resources available. And again, bookmark them, visit it during the September school holidays, see what you think about those. And that will help you build your list of colleges that you may be interested in trying to be recruited at. Next slide, please. Again, the NCAA makes it really easy for you to navigate and understand what's required. If you go to their landing page and go to your country of origin, you see that you can pull up New Zealand as a region, or Australia if you're in Australia, and you could actually look at what they are telling you are reviewed subjects and core subjects, or what they are expecting from students from both New Zealand and Australia. So once upon a time, it used to just be in the booklet where you see the hockey player on the right. Now it is broken down and put up on the website really simplistically. It is reviewed every 3 months with updates. And again, it's something that you should just be familiar with how to find. Next slide, please. Again, we've mentioned that there's 3 associations. The NAIA also has a really good search tool as well to help you. So what's important to know is there's some great resource tools to help you, and we certainly want to introduce you to some of those tonight. And again, we think this is a good one too. Next slide, please. And sometimes it's about understanding regions and how things work. This is an interactive map that the junior colleges, 2-year community colleges put out there as well. So there are some great resources available to help you if you wanted to be indeed recruited as a student athlete. Next slide, please. I'm going to bring Katie back on screen with me as well, and whoever else wants to join us. And we're going to talk about resources and contact details, about how you can engage with us, how we share information. And I'll just let Katie come on and she can talk about the first box, about how you can continue to engage with us. We know that there's been quite a lot of information we've shared with you today. We know that we believe it's going to make your process simpler. Again, the recording will help you as well. But let me pass you over to Katie, and thanks for joining us. And I hope this has been helpful.
Great, thank you, Samantha. In terms of more advice and resources from New Zealand, we really encourage you all to follow our Facebook page, Education USA NZ, and that is really where we house a lot of our tips and advice, but also where we have a hub of all of the events that we have coming up as well. So be sure to tune in there to see what we have going on. We also have some resources available on the US Embassy New Zealand website. We are going through a bit of a refresh with those, but it can be a great resource for you. And feel free to email us as well, newzealand@educationusa.org. Over to you, Samantha.
And again, like New Zealand, we have similar resources available to you as well. Again, we have a Facebook page. If you are with us and you're in high school tonight, I know you're probably all TikToking or Instagramming, and Facebooking is so not cool anymore. We agree with you, but we also work for the US government. So sharing information at any real speed is complicated if we relied on a website. So we do ask that you engage and follow your respective countries' Facebook pages, which will keep you up to date with all of our sessions and programming. Again, like Katie, we're going a little bit of a review with our website, and we're in the process of updating those. But again, there's some great resources. And depending on where you're joining us from tonight, there are ways that you can communicate with us too. So there are easy emails to reach us. And again, we encourage you to make contact, and we'll help you with those questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to our session this evening. I know we had a number of other questions too, and we will be sending a follow-up email with a link to the recording shortly after this. But we also will include lots of links for you to continue that research process. Also, please check out our YouTube channel, which has more than 20 hours of video content to help you learn about different study options, admissions, scholarships and financial assistance, more in-depth on sports scholarships, and even more. I also wanted to flag that we have a few more events coming up in the month of September, so please check out our Facebook pages on how you can access those events as well. But thank you so much for tuning in with us today. Thank you as well to Samantha and Ron for helping out with this session. You all are great. We love your questions, and we hope we can help you out as much as we can in the future. Thanks again, and have a good night.
Good night, everyone.